So this is it's sort of an extra notes video on the first episode of the Moon RPG Let's Play. I'm just gonna get to it. Just some things in Japanese that I missed when our in-house resident Japanese expert, Sandy, watched the episode. First thing I want to note is that this text here in the beginning, the sort of jocular text, is actually sort of like jargon. It might be like, I found an English translation of this. It's actually like RPG jargon. So if you play a lot of like Dragon Quest, you might be able to read it. But one thing I noticed is here it mentions mode 7, but apparently it's just talking about something like, oh, and then there would be a scene where you fly through the air in mode 7. So, you can see the developers sort of criticizing or making fun of, not necessarily criticizing, but just, talking about, sort of commenting on their experience of RPGs. The next thing is at 3:10 in the video, where you talk. So when you first talk to the let me see if I can turn the volume off. So when we talk to the king here, they talk in a very like normal RPG voice. And then when you talk to this guy, I didn't realize at the time, but so this one's just like, oh, the dragon is very formidable, so like, please, what does it say again? Oh yeah, please take care of it, or like be careful on your quest. The next thing they say, it actually like completely changes tone, and this says, Zakodomo bukkoroshite, and Zakodomo is like small fry or like scrubs or like tiny monsters, and bukkoroshite is like to beat the shit out of, basically like beat to death. So the guy went from talking about like, oh, be careful when you fight the dragon, and he's like, oh yeah, and beat the shit out of all the small monsters and get a lot of experience points. So the kind of like tone change is an interesting thing to do narratively, I think. Okay, what else is there? So if you notice, there's visual discrepancies between the sprite representation of this dog and then the in battle representation of the dog. It's a kuratta inu, so like a crazy or crazed, like maybe like rabid dog or something like that. You'll see more about why that narratively is as we play more of the game, but it's kind of clever what they're setting up at this point. Another thing is also the discrepancy between the quote-unquote in-game representation of the sprite here and then the visual. So this looks like a young woman, but it's an older, fatter woman. A few more notes. So you notice that at the end of each battle, it says, Yusha wa slime no iki no ne o tometa, which is basically just saying. So what I didn't realize here is that iki no ne literally is like life, and iki no ne o tometa is to choke the life out of, or like to beat the last breath out of. So it's this very like off-tone dialogue. So normally in games I'd be like, oh, you defeated the monster, but this one it's like, oh, you beat the monster down to its last breath, and like choke the light out. A very like strong sounding word. It's another like sort of humor developers do. And another thing, kind of commentating on how what you're playing here is sort of a different representation of the game's reality is, so at the end of this battle, so here it says, 究極魔法を使ってみようと, which means that, someone decided to use the ultimate magic, but apparently it's implied that this is being said in the first person. I think maybe because the verb here, mio, is volitional. So like saying like, oh, I've decided to, or let's do this. So that could be referring to the hero of this like fake Moon RPG is sort of expressing his will. And that kind of makes sense as you see how the hero is represented later. If you notice, the hero we're playing as is actually this guy here. There's one more note. Oh, I think it was this. Let me unmute it. And then Mom's like, hey, stop playing. The recording of that Mom's voice, it sounds very like amateurish or read off of paper. I wonder who did the voice acting for that, but I'm also curious if it was intentional or not. But it could also sort of just allude to sort of how this game was created by a small team and never became very popular. Anyways, those are my notes for this episode. I don't know if I'll do videos for notes all the time because it takes more time, but hopefully this was interesting.